You're traveling through the unknown, a journey beyond the corners of reality, where the shadows whisper and the chill runs deep. Welcome to the dimension where your deepest fears are given form. This is The Midnight Mystery.
Welcome to The Midnight Mystery. This episode is called When the Nukes Fell, the Titans Rose. In each episode, we delve into the shadowed corners of our existence, bringing you tales of the eerie, the uncanny, and the downright terrifying. From the realms of the supernatural to the depths of the human psyche, no stone is left unturned, no dark secret left hidden. In this episode, when nuclear war devastates the world, it awakens an ancient horror, the Titans. In this gripping story, join Jack, a resilient ex-military man, and his loyal German shepherd, Max, as they navigate the ruins of civilization. As the clock once again draws near midnight, prepare to embark on another adventure into the uncanny, the eerie, the horrifying, the midnight mystery. Once the thriving heart of America, Boston now lay in ruins. I navigated the skeletal remains of what was once a bustling city, with my German shepherd, Max, by my side. His keen senses proved invaluable in this desolate wasteland, and his companionship was a comfort in the loneliness that marked our days. "Find anything, Max?" I asked, watching as his nose twitched, sniffing the air. He trotted off towards a pile of rubble, nosing at something half buried in the dirt. In the aftermath of the nuclear catastrophe between the US and Russia, survivors like myself scavenged for scraps, finding sustenance in the remnants of our once abundant civilization. The war had come without warning, and I was among the few lucky ones. Being stationed at a remote military outpost had saved me from immediate annihilation. "Good boy, Max," I praised him, dusting off the can he'd unearthed. It was dog food, not a feast, but it would keep us going. Max's tail wagged, and I gave him an affectionate scratch behind the ear. The world was an irradiated graveyard, and we were the reluctant ghosts, wandering amongst the bones of what once was. The bustling streets and towering skyscrapers were now just skeletal structures against the backdrop of a charred sky. The human population had dwindled drastically, replaced by the silence that hung heavily in the air. "Let's keep moving, Max. We should find shelter before nightfall," I said, hoisting my pack over my shoulder. There was an unspoken rule in this new world. You didn't want to be caught out in the open when the sun went down. As we trudged through the deserted streets, I couldn't help but reflect on the world that was. A world filled with life, laughter, hope, all replaced with this somber silence. The war had changed everything, turned everything upside down. But life had a way of persisting, even in the face of such hopelessness. Max and I were proof of that. We were survivors, clinging onto life with a ferocity that surprised even me. Despite the bleakness of our situation, we had something to hold on to, each other. And in a world gone mad, that was more than enough. As the remnants of Boston faded into the distance, I looked down at Max, his tongue lolling out in a canine grin. He seemed to sense my thoughts and nuzzled his head against my leg. "Still with me, boy?" I asked, to which he responded with a bark, his eyes sparkling with loyalty and trust. It was a small thing, but it was moments like this that kept me going. We were in this together, and come what may, we'd face it as we always did, side by side. We had just stepped inside the fallout shelter when it happened. The ground beneath us heaved and shook, dust and debris raining down from the ceiling. Max whined and pressed close to my side, his body trembling. "Easy, boy. It's just an aftershock," I tried to soothe him, my voice steady even though my heart pounded in my chest. Aftershocks were common in the aftermath of the bombings, just another echo of our past mistakes. But then, a low, guttural roar echoed through the shelter, so deep and powerful that I could feel it vibrating in my bones. It was a sound I'd never heard before, something primal, something terrifying. Max let out a low growl, his body coiled and ready to spring. "That's not an aftershock," I murmured, dread sinking into my stomach like a stone. We raced towards the shelter's exit, the ominous roar growing louder and more urgent. As we emerged from the shelter, the sight that greeted us was unlike anything I'd ever seen. The city's ruins were being torn apart, buildings toppling over like dominoes. The ground was splitting open, and from it emerged a monstrous entity, a Titan. "Max, back!" I yelled, pulling him away as the creature rose higher and higher, dwarfing the remains of the city. It was grotesque, a twisted mockery of life, its body a shifting mass of writhing limbs and gnarled flesh. It roared again, a deafening sound that made the ground shake. I could only stare in horror as it looked around, its eyes burning like twin suns in the dying light of the day. The nuclear explosions, it seemed, had awakened more than just our worst fears. "We need to get out of here, Max," I managed to say, my voice hoarse. Max seemed to understand, his ears flattened against his head, his tail tucked between his legs. But even in his fear, he stood by me, ready to face whatever came our way. This was our new reality, a world not just scarred by war, but now home to these nightmarish titans. As we retreated from the monstrous entity, one thing became clear. Our fight for survival had just become a whole lot harder. Max and I were on the run, our breaths labored, hearts pounding in our chests. The Titan had left destruction in its wake, its powerful roars still echoing through the broken city. We navigated the chaos, dodging falling debris and steering clear of radiated zones that glowed ominously in the twilight. "Stay close, Max," I instructed, my voice barely audible over the clamor. Despite the terror coursing through me, Max was a source of calm, his steady presence grounding me. In our desperate dash to escape, we found ourselves in the heart of the city, now a maze of treacherous paths and looming ruins. As we turned a corner, we skidded to a halt, finding ourselves face to face with a group of survivors. Their faces were hardened by survival, eyes filled with desperate determination. "Looks like we've got company," the leader sneered, his gaze moving over us. "Hand over your supplies." I felt Max tense at my side, a low growl rumbling in his throat. We were outnumbered, but I'd be damned if we gave up without a fight. "I think we'll pass," I retorted, standing my ground. The leader snarled, lunging at me. I sidestepped him, my military training kicking in. Max leaped into the fray, his powerful jaws clamping down on another's arm. Chaos erupted, but through it all, Max and I moved as one, a synchronized force against our assailants. Finally, spotting an opening, I grabbed Max's collar. "Run!" I commanded, and we bolted, leaving our would-be attackers behind. Our breaths came in ragged gasps, adrenaline fueling our escape until we were safe, hidden amongst the ruins. Crouching down, I hugged Max tightly, my heart swelling with gratitude for my loyal companion. "We did good, boy," I whispered, pressing my forehead against his. "We're in this together, always." In that moment, it was clearer than ever before. Our bond, solidified in the crucible of survival, was our strongest weapon. In our relentless search for shelter, Max and I stumbled upon an old military bunker. Its solid walls promised safety, a reprieve from the nightmarish world outside. As we ventured deeper, I found a room filled with dusty cabinets and cobweb-covered shelves, relics of a world buried in secrecy. Max sniffed around the room while I rifled through the documents, trying to make sense of the faded ink and cryptic language. Then I found it, a file marked classified. My heart pounded as I opened it, revealing reports and photographs that sent a chill down my spine. "Max," I murmured, my eyes scanning the documents. "I think we found something." The government, it seemed, had been hiding a monstrous secret. The Titans. These enormous creatures were not the result of the war, but beings that had lain dormant beneath the Earth's core. Only a select few knew of their existence, and the nuclear explosions had been their wake-up call. As Max nuzzled his head against my arm, I uncovered something more. A failsafe. The documents mentioned a hidden government facility in Washington, D.C., where a mechanism to subdue the Titans was stored. My heart pounded at the implications. "We have a chance, Max," I said, excitement coursing through me. "We might be able to stop these creatures." He looked up at me, his tail thumping against the floor, his trust in me unwavering. But I knew this wouldn't be easy. D.C. was hundreds of miles away, a perilous journey through a post-apocalyptic landscape. However, as I looked into Max's trusting eyes, I made a decision. If there was even a sliver of a chance we could make things right, I owed it to him, to the girl we had saved, and to the remnants of humanity to try. "I hope you're up for a long journey, buddy," I said, folding up the documents and tucking them into my backpack. Max wagged his tail, his eyes sparkling with a sense of adventure. As daunting as the task ahead was, I knew we weren't alone. We had each other, and in this broken world, that was more than enough to face the battles to come. We set off at dawn, leaving the bunker and its haunting secrets behind. Our destination was hundreds of miles away, but for the first time since the world had ended, we had a purpose, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. The journey was fraught with danger. On more than one occasion, we were forced to hide as another Titan stomped past, its grotesque form blotting out the sky. Once we were too close, the creature's roar sending debris flying in all directions. Max and I barely escaped, our breaths coming in ragged gasps as we dove for cover. "We're getting too good at this," I muttered, patting Max's side once the danger had passed. He huffed in response, his tail thumping against my leg. Our journey took a surprising turn when we stumbled upon a group of survivors, led by a tough-looking woman named Sarah. She had an air of authority about her, but it was her kindness that struck me the most. "We heard the Titan," she said, offering us food and water. "Thought we'd lost more to the beasts." I hesitated, then decided to take a risk. I told her about the documents, the failsafe, our mission. Her eyes widened, but she didn't dismiss me. Instead, she seemed to consider it, studying me with newfound interest. "And you believe this could work?" she asked finally, her gaze intense. "I have to believe," I replied, my gaze steady. "It's all we've got." There was a long silence as she contemplated my words. Then she nodded, a determined look on her face. "We'll join you, Jack," she said firmly. "It's a long shot, but it's a shot nonetheless." I was taken aback but grateful. We needed all the help we could get. With Sarah and her group joining us, our odds just got a little better. Max seemed to agree, his tail wagging as he made new friends with the other survivors. The path ahead was daunting, but we weren't alone anymore. We had a plan, we had hope, and most importantly, we had each other. Whatever the future held, we would face it together. Washington, D.C. had once been a city of power and prestige, the hub of American governance. Now, it was a ghost of its former self, the buildings shattered and charred, the streets littered with rubble. To make matters worse, the city was teeming with hostile survivors, eager to claim whatever they could from the ruins. "Friendly welcome, huh?" Sarah murmured as we surveyed the city from a safe distance. I gave a grim nod. "Stay sharp and stick together." We pushed through. With Max leading the way, we ventured into the heart of the city, weapons at the ready. Every corner held potential danger, but we moved as one, our survival instincts honed to a razor's edge. Gunshots echoed in the abandoned streets, debris flew, but we pressed on, our eyes on the prize. "We're close," I breathed as we neared the location mentioned in the documents. The facility was hidden in plain sight, beneath what remained of the Lincoln Memorial. Its entrance was shielded by high-tech defenses, laser grids buzzing with lethal energy. Sarah whistled lowly. "They really didn't want anyone getting in, did they?" "No," I agreed, "but they didn't count on us." With our group's combined knowledge, we managed to puzzle out a way to temporarily disable the lasers. It was a harrowing few minutes, every second counting down to when the lasers would reactivate. Max was the first to slip through, his body low to the ground. I followed, heart hammering in my chest. One by one, we all made it. Inside, we were greeted by a maze of corridors, all leading to a large chamber housing the failsafe. In the center of the chamber was a device, intricate and humming with a strange energy. It pulsed with the same resonance I felt when the Titans were near. Only this was different. Calming, serene. "The failsafe," I murmured, awestruck. "This is it." "But how does it work?" Sarah asked, her gaze fixed on the device. I scanned the control panel, a series of symbols and codes that made little sense at first. Then I spotted a set of instructions, hidden beneath layers of encryption. The failsafe, it seemed, was a weapon that harnessed the same energy that woke the Titans, but in reverse. It was designed to put them back into their slumber. "Like a lullaby for the Titans," I mused aloud, my fingers tracing over the controls. "Well then," Sarah said, a hopeful glint in her eyes. "Let's sing them back to sleep." The next minutes were a blur as we activated the failsafe. The device hummed to life, the energy building until it was almost unbearable. Then, with a blinding flash, it released a wave of energy, an invisible signal sent rippling out to silence the Titan's wakeful rage. Exhausted but victorious, we leaned on each other for support, our gazes meeting in silent celebration. We had done it. Against all odds, we had given humanity a fighting chance. "And now?" Sarah asked after a moment, her voice breaking the heavy silence. "Now," I said, meeting her gaze, "we rebuild. Together." We savored our victory too soon. As the last of the energy pulsed out from the failsafe, the ground beneath us shook violently. A low, resonating roar echoed through the chambers of the facility. Not from the Titan we had subdued, but from deep within the earth. Max growled, his ears flattened against his head. I turned to Sarah, meeting her wide-eyed gaze. "It's not possible," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, but the growing tremors cut me off. The failsafe. It hadn't put the Titans to sleep. Instead, it had served as a call, a beacon reaching out to those that still slumbered. We had inadvertently woken more of them. The realization hit us like a punch to the gut. Our hard-earned victory was unraveling. Sarah swore under her breath, her gaze fixed on the control panel of the device. "What now, Jack?" "Same as before," I said, clenching my jaw. "We find them, and we put them back to sleep. Only this time, we make sure they stay that way." Her expression hardened, determination replacing the initial shock. She nodded, her hand resting on the pistol at her side. "Then let's get moving." We exited the facility to the sight of the sun rising over the demolished city. In the distance, the Titan we had managed to subdue lay dormant. But even as we watched, more tremors shook the earth, a grim reminder of our unintended consequences. Max whined, nudging his head against my leg. I knelt, scratching his ears. "Yeah, boy, I know," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We made a mess, and now we're going to clean it up." We knew what lay ahead. Our mission had taken on a new urgency, the stakes higher than ever. We had awakened more Titans, and it was our responsibility to set things right. It was a daunting task, but we were prepared to face it. The spectral shadow of the Lincoln Memorial receded into the background as Max and I trudged through the skeletal remains of what was once a thriving city. Overhead, the silent Titan loomed, a monstrous embodiment of the unholy power that slumbered beneath us, a power I had unknowingly summoned. Pausing, I stared back at the Titan. The quiet was heavy, broken only by the distant, ominous rumblings that had become our constant accompaniment in this post-apocalyptic reality. "We've made a terrible mistake, Max," I found myself whispering into the void, the weight of my words sinking into the desolate silence. Max, ever attentive, tilted his head, his eyes reflecting my own turmoil. "I thought we were putting them to sleep, but I fear we might have fucked up," I confessed, the taste of the truth as bitter as the radioactive air we were forced to breathe. For a moment, we stood there in silence, the reality of our situation settling over us like a shroud. The landscape around us, stripped of its vibrancy and life, seemed to mirror our dread, casting long, monstrous shadows under the ghostly pallor of the moon. The fight we thought was winding down was far from over. Instead, it was just beginning. As we moved deeper into the ruins, each step echoed our grim determination. Our heads held high not out of defiance, but a silent acceptance of the monstrous task we had unwittingly inherited. No grand speeches were made, no promises of heroism uttered. We had a path to tread, dark and fraught with unknown dangers. We can't surrender now. There has to be a way to stop them. I hope you enjoyed our episode. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to you, our brave listeners. Your presence in this shared journey into the unknown is what fuels our stories. Your fascination is our motivation. Did this episode send chills down your spine? Leave your comments, share your thoughts, your theories, your own midnight mysteries. Your feedback is the beacon that guides us through the uncharted territories of our stories. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to our channel. By joining the Midnight Mystery family, you won't miss out on a single chilling tale. As a subscriber, you'll be the first to know when a new episode lurks around the corner, ready to pull you back into the shadowy depths of the unknown. This is the Midnight Mystery signing off, leaving you with a simple reminder. When the clock strikes 12, fear the silence, for that's when our tales come to life. Good night, Midnight listeners, and remember, not all who wander into the dark are lost.